All right, welcome back to the Impact Talks podcast. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the two other speakers you had on the previous event. Actually, It was Emerson who was there on the first event also, but then a special guest appearance from yourself, actually.
Yeah, apparently, and I'm really going to enjoy talking about myself because that wasn't a good session. No, So we invited Emerson back for the second time because I think he was so enthused about what we were doing and coming together as a community, talking about telephone fundraising. And I think from the audience's side, what he touches upon is one of the really important connectors when you're doing donor-centered communication. And that is, what are you actually trying to sell? And one of his key points is it's not your organization. Forget about it. When you were founded, how big you are, where you work, all these things aren't really relevant, your brand positioning. They should feel it, see it, but don't talk about it. Talk about the change you're trying to make. Talk about, in his case with SOS Children Villages in Portugal, that there's a lot of neglected children out there and you can be part of doing something for them. And he had a moment in his talk where he came to the core messaging is the product you're buying is you're fighting silence. Because when kids are abused or neglected, usually it's about silence. Nobody hears them, nobody talks about it, nobody does anything. And that was part of what they were out selling to people is let's fight this silence together. So it had a really powerful connection with the donor-centered communication theme we had the last event.
He was talking about that you're actually selling a product.
Yeah.
So in what way do you present the product you're selling?
Yes, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I've applied it many times, is what are you actually trying to sell? Because if you can't say it simply, you can't really engage people in it. Then it'll be a very long conversation. But kind of a productification of fundraising is wonderful because then, a child sponsorship, you know what that is. But it doesn't have to be to one kid, it could be many things, but it's kind of structured away as a product so we know it. It's like if you buy a subscription for Netflix, you know what you get. You get access to a lot of movies. If you subscribe or become a regular donor to Save the Trees, what are you getting? Is it because we'll save a tree each month for you, or is it just something about saving trees? It's if you can make it into a product, you can put a price on it. And then you're not just asking people for money, you're asking tangible, give me money, I need this, then we can change that. Yes, and that's the impact we want to do. It's if not, it becomes too abstract. And that was Emerson's point with don't talk about your charity, talk about the good work you do.
Yes. Are they buying something tangible or are they buying your good intentions?
Yes, exactly. And it's how far can you move down that road? Because tangibility brings it closer home. People can assert a value to it. And if you do something really, really valuable, they will donate a lot of money because that's what needed to make that change happen.
And what about pricing in that regard?
That's so I had a speaker that I want to come by. So it's somebody not from within the sector. He's built a big .com software as a service company, and one of his specialities is pricing strategy. And I haven't heard a fundraiser talk about pricing strategy before. But if you're Netflix or you're any other big corporate entity in the world, you have a lot of reflection about what your pricing levels are. We don't in the sector, and I think that would be wonderful if we could start having a discussion about how do we do donation strategies on what we ask for. But I'm chasing him. I'll find him one day, I'm sure, and I'll bring him into the crowd.
And what did you talk about in your own talk?
Yeah, my own talk was about empathy and emotional fundraising, and it's something I've worked extensively with for many years. And I thought it was really important to get that in as part of the theme around donor-centered communication, because that's actually how we as individuals connect with things. It's always emotional. We can tell ourselves it's rational, but the rational behavior is actually just based on biases and emotional reactions. So it's about how do you create empathy? How do you work with empathy? What types of empathy are there? And I think the emotional connector is where people are transformed when you talk to them. So it's about they don't understand, they don't know what you're doing, they feel it. And at the moment when we start feeling things, we start acting, we start doing things, and we can carry it in our hearts forever. And the most important point about that for the subject and the theme about donor-centered communication is when we use telephone fundraising, we talk about donors, 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 and that is so important. But telephone fundraising is a contact sport. You're talking to people live, so you don't control the environment fully. And when we as managers or campaign developers are talking about motivating the donors, the connection there is the people who are doing the calls. And I think we should spend a lot more time on motivating them or engaging them emotionally in the calls before they start calling. Because the whole theory is, if they feel it, they can communicate that feeling to somebody else by being empathetic. If they don't feel your cause, they can't.
Exactly. So in that way, it also fits in the overall theme of the event.
I just think in general, the callers are so overlooked, and we're doing an event just around the callers in November, because if we can be 50% better at motivating, engaging, keeping them, developing them, we'll raise a lot more money for the good causes we have.
And what can people expect from the next event?
Yeah, it's a little bit of it's not a wild card, but it's like where did that come from? When I was talking to the people when we are organizing the speakers, and it's going to be the opening, so a little bit like Elizabeth, but Hawat is coming from SOS Children Villages in Norway, and she's a caller. And I think, we are meeting here talking about telephone fundraising. We should have one of the people who do this every day. And apparently she won the Norwegian prize for most recruitment in a day shift. So she's really brilliant. I've spoken a little bit with her. And she'll come and tell us why the most innovative thing is actually getting really good callers on the phone.
Something to look forward to.
Absolutely. And I think it's, I've seen this before with, big gurus presenting clever stuff, and then they are humbled by the people who sit day in and day out and just talk with donors and engage them with their cause, because that's a skill set and a profession that we really need to respect.
Yes, because from my own part, I have some prejudice against those people calling from whatever charity to ask for money. So it could be interesting to hear their perspective.
Absolutely.
Maybe through her, actually.
Yeah. I think that's it. We find, in Impact Talks, we find the people who do it the right way, not the sausage factory. And she's one of them. So that'll be really inspiring to see.
Hello?